Today's conversation is focused on college admissions. So many of us have been at home during this time getting stressed out about all the things in life that have been brought to a standstill, especially students who will be applying to colleges. This is why we're going to deep dive a little more into the process and get some insights directly from someone who has been involved in this for a while now. In conversation with Katherine Chan, Katherine is an alumni of Cornell University and has been connected with it for almost 15 years. Cornell University is a private and well-known Ivy League research university. Its ranking in the 2020 edition of Best Colleges in National Universities is number 17. Katherine has also worked extensively in the hospitality industry and in Airbnb. Also founder of a consulting firm, Katherine is an incredibly thoughtful and experienced leader. Welcome, Kat. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Thanks for having me, Prisha. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Katherine, first of all, how are you dealing with these unprecedented times of COVID?
It's a good question. One of the things that I'm doing is really taking the time to reflect a lot about kind of like my own position and the things that I really want to do with my time and my work going forward as well. Meanwhile, I'm having a good time kind of like connecting with people all throughout my network and my community. So I've gotten a chance to have conversations with friends and family that perhaps I haven't been able to connect with as much in the past. So that's been really great.
Yeah, it really allows you to connect with people. That's nice. So let's start off with Cornell. So why did you decide to go to Cornell? And tell me something about your experience there.
Yeah, great question. So I am a little bit unique, I realized kind of like later throughout my adult life, because I knew I wanted to go to Cornell since age 14. So I was researching Ivy League schools. I grew up in the Northeast in New Jersey, so I was looking at different Ivy League institutions, and I realized that I could have the opportunity to study business, but with a hospitality focus at Cornell. So it gave me a chance to practice business in an industry that allowed me to connect with people, also get involved with food and travel, and an industry that I found that was really exciting, and do all of those in one group. So I was fortunate enough to be admitted to Cornell, and it was an amazing experience. I think it really helped define who I am as a person. And one of the things I think about specifically is that I went to the hotel administration program at Cornell, and it really emphasized a style of leadership. So it said that we should really focus on servant leadership before that became a more commonly used term. So as an example, one of the core quotes from the school is that life is service. The one who advances in life is the one who gives one's fellow person a little more, a little better service. So I try to have that with me about like, that's why I do business, and that philosophy around it. So yes, I got a well-rounded business education and finance, as well as communications and basically everything you can think about in business. But it also said like why you do those things as well and how you bring that into the world.
Yeah. Wow.
Cornell also, for me, was a great place to build a community and a place of very diverse and inclusive institution. The idea from the founder, Ezra Cornell, was that he would create an institution where anyone could study anything that they wanted to. So I got a chance to do many things outside of hotel administration. So I studied rock and roll, for example. I studied acting. I also took a class on kind of vineyard management as well. So I got a chance to really intellectually expose myself to other areas outside of my major. Also on a personal note, I had many super close connections, the most important of which is my husband, who's also a Cornellian. He is an environmental engineer. So we've been together our entire adult lives.
Amazing. Wow. So Cornell really did a lot to shape you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now I want to kind of ask you one of the more college-oriented questions because I feel like this is one of the most commonly asked questions, but there's so many different pieces of advice out there. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. So do colleges prefer a student who has done a lot of different things like that you can put down on your application, or a student who has pursued one passion for a very long time?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so I'm just speaking from the context of being a volunteer alumni interviewer. So these are just my personal observations after 15 years of meeting talented students such as yourself that are applying to Cornell. I think that either works. It's really about kind of being your authentic self. So if you want to explore many different interests, that's fine. Other students may choose to go deep in kind of like one specific area. I think what's important is to kind of demonstrate the thinking about why you pursued those activities. Was it to develop a specific skill? Was it to prepare yourself for either a professional interest in a career or discipline, or to say, like, if you went deep into something, was there a certain milestone or level of achievement that you wanted to have, like be it a specific award or membership in a specific group, for example. So I think either is fine. It's more about explaining the why, about why you chose to either go broad or deep.
Okay. So should that all tie in basically to your story? Should all your passions, all your interests, should they that you talk about in your application, should they all like tie into one thing or your major that you're choosing? Or is it okay if they're not?
I think it's okay if it doesn't. But I think one thing to realize is that they only get a relatively small amount of time to learn who you are as a person. So if you even think about like the word count requirements for an essay, or even the amount of time that you might get to spend on an informational interview, they'll only get to see a slice of who you are. So the more you can think about how to tell that story overall about like why you chose to do what you did, it's fine. And I think like no one is expecting you at age 17, 16 to have figured out everything. Like this is absolutely what I'm going to do. There are many adults that will spend their entire lives trying to figure out that greater purpose.
Mhm.
So I think like it's good to do some self-reflection to say like what is the story, because like that will help you just in life all throughout, because it helps better explain not only to the college but also to yourself like what's most important for you.
Okay. Um, and now I'm gonna kind of ask you something COVID related because I told you already, like everybody's so freaked out, stressed out. So now that we can't go outside of our houses physically, and let's say kids have to do internships, they have to volunteer, all of those things. Um, how are college admission process, like how is that different now?
It's a good question. Like I can't speak from like the official like college admissions perspective, but I
Mhm.
think it's just thinking about how agile you are and how much you can adapt to the change that's happening, because like no one chose for this circumstances to be happening, but you do get a chance to choose like how you react to it. So I'd imagine that most like admissions committees, they will have not thought about this either, because like you're right that the traditional venues like part-time jobs like I had in high school, or like summer camp or study programs, those won't exist in the same way. So they also as a college are in a new place of like thinking through this. So I think it's a good opportunity to also think about things that you can do from your own home to explore things. I think one of the great things is like through the internet and different like community platforms that we have now, there's lots of different things that you can do to explore or study. So for example, could it be taking like an online education course in an area that you're really interested in? Could it be like a social media campaign about a cause that you're really passionate about? I think there's a really good opportunity to be creative and think about like what you can do based on your own interests and skills from your own home. I
Yeah.
do also think like in a broader sense across the world that people are thinking through the digital transformation of our lives, and kind of like this is not going to be the same world that we were in before shelter in place. So I think like having that practice and thinking through how do you adapt to change, what might make sense for you not only right now but in the future as you look towards applying to college, I think that will serve you really well in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually about to ask you what you would suggest kids do. Like I think it's so great that you're saying to not just sit around and just think quarantine is just, a time for watching movies. Of course it is. Like you should relax and stuff, but I think like we should also try and do new things and learn. It's a great time to just like learn new things. I'm trying cooking. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think like it's really interesting now with cooking, how people are trying out different recipes. That's also something I've been doing. So
Oh,
trying out different cuisines, like even though I can't go to those places, I can get kind of a small sliver of it by
yeah.
trying to learn about the culture and making the food. I think also it's a really good time for reflection. So now is a very unique time. Like future you may be interested to just hear thoughts like through journaling or things like that about some of the emotions and thoughts that you have at this really unique time in the world, but also your life.
Okay. So do you know some resources that kids can use or?
It's a good question. I haven't kind of like specifically like looked into this myself, but I think like even just thinking through different ways of using things that you might already do would be helpful. So for example, if you use Instagram as like a social media platform, maybe it's a place to take a photo each day and to kind of like reflect on some of the thinking that you have, or to share like a quote that might be meaningful to you at that moment, so that when you look back, you can have more of a record. I think it's more about like purposefully using things that you already use in a different way. I think that's probably the best thing to do to have like a meaningful and sustained change over time, instead of like trying out this new platform that's like kind of foreign to you, but you can
Yeah.
look into it.
Yeah. That's a cool idea. So now like I wanted to ask you about majors.
Mhm.
So um does your major choice affect the acceptance into your college that you want to go into?
I think it can, so I believe things have changed from the time that I applied to Cornell, but at the time you had to apply into a specific college. So if you wanted to be a hotel administration major like I was, you needed to make that specific choice before applying.
Yeah.
Kind of similarly, my husband also had to choose to become an environmental engineer and apply to the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences and the College of Engineering in a dual degree program. So I think it can, but it varies a lot based on the school. There are many schools that have you apply to the overall institution, and then from there, after you do a year of core courses, then start to apply for your major later on. So it definitely depends a lot about the institution that you're in. I think also about the broader goals. So to be general about it, the more pre-professional a program is, or specific and like kind of like deep in that area, the more likely it will be that you need to get started on that right away. So to give you a sense, like in my freshman year, I was already starting to think through hotel administration things, be it like a hotel revenue management model, or thinking through how you might manage a restaurant, in addition to accounting and other kind of business fundamentals right offhand that I needed to start doing. But, if you're more of a generalist, or you might be looking to prepare yourself for a career in something that requires graduate education, it might be less important to do like immediately in your major.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you mentioned double majoring, and I wanted to know because a lot of people think, yeah, I know it's like a lot of, it's very tedious. You need to be very good at time management. Do you think double majoring is a good idea, or do you think it's preferable to just take a major in something and then minoring in whatever else you want to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it also is a good moment to mention that academics are only one part of your school and college experience. So for me, like while I did take advantage of many classes at Cornell, I also worked part time as a banquet server in our student run hotel. I also was a teaching assistant for several classes, like while in school as well.
Mhm.
And I was in other kind of like extracurricular activities and music, as well as like volunteering, that were important to me. So I think like this all has to be part of like one big time management thing. So yes, you could do it like doing different majors. The more different those majors are, the more time it will take, because you won't have as much overlap to be able to do those same two majors fulfilled by one course. But I think it also depends a little bit what your goals are professionally. Is this something where there's a strong correlation or a need for that specific major in what you're doing? So, for example, in more technical fields, that might be the case. But I think the overall trend is that people are moving away from kind of like specific majors for the most part, like being the natural on ramp to a specific job. So I think in that sense, it's less important about having that dual major. It's more about what you take away from your college experience, of which like the majors and academics are one part of it.
Okay. So, Catherine, what have been some common misconceptions and common myths, according to you, when you've interviewed people?
Yeah, I think one myth that I know about is that you need to apply to many schools, because I recognize that most colleges are competitive, but once you get past a certain point, you start to see kind of like less value of each individual additional application. And of course, each application is also costing you money as well. So you want to make sure that you do have a selection of schools that you're applying to, some that are reach, some that are more of your safety school. But you don't need to apply to, say, more than like six. And I kind of just picked a number, but kind of like about the amount that you can remember easily off like the tip of your tongue and maybe on like one hand is probably good to think about, is assuming that they're diversified throughout those.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. So, and I also wanted to kind of ask you about, because I know you take a lot of interviews, you've met a lot of people who've applied to Cornell. So, I wanted to ask you, what have been some qualities that have stood out to you when you were interviewing people, and why?
Yeah, one quality that really stands out to me is curiosity. That's something that I always try to be there to answer any questions that people have about Cornell. So the more that you have your own questions and are just interested in the world around you, that stands out to me, because that shows that you're really using the intellect that you have and then applying in it and growing and becoming like a better person through that. Another characteristic that really stands out to me is preparedness. And the way that I see that demonstrated by successful candidates is that they have done their research about the school and specifically know about like how the school could benefit them, or specific things that interest them that are well aligned with your past experience, or perhaps something that you want to learn more about. And this can also benefit you as well, because that way, hopefully we'll get a chance to go back and have campus visits. And then while you're doing your campus visit, maybe you could join like a meeting or an event of like a club that you're interested in. You might be able to sit in on a class that you're really interested in as well, just so that you can get a sense of whether that school is a good fit for you or not.
Yeah. Do your research, kids.
Absolutely, always.
um, but okay, so finally, if you could tell the students of this generation one thing that they should do during college admissions process, what is your one advice for them?
Yeah, the one piece of advice I have is that now is a great time to think about what success means for you. Because I think that, at least for me, until I went and graduated from college, everything, I was really fortunate. I came from a lot of privileges, I came from a lot of advantages, but it was like pretty structured. So to say, like, I achieved my goal of getting into my dream college, I went there, I studied, you get feedback all throughout, like, you get grades and you have to do these things to graduate. But I think, like, now, when you're in high school and looking to go to college, it's a great time to reassess, like, what would success look like for you? Like, do you want to pursue a specific type of profession? Do you want to have a specific like family or personal life? Do you want to kind of like be known for doing like things that earn you a good financial living? Now's a good time to think about that, because like I think college is a very important milestone to help you move towards those goals. But it should be also taken pretty seriously too, because like with the cost of tuition these days, it's a major investment. So I
Mhm.
think like only you will be able to know, is that investment worthwhile, kind of based on your own ideas of success, and whether you could think that college choice will help you get where you want to go.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was amazing advice. Um, and it was so great talking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.